Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is the living room, and now bi-monthly session for conversation and information sharing on topics related to sustainable jewelry practices. We cover a variety of topics from practical tools that can be implemented in your jewelry practice to in-depth learning about artisanal mining, for example. Today, we're going to have a conversation with Friends of the Inyo, a group looking to block new mining as high prices and demand for gold are reigniting the pursuit of gold in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. And as always, later on, we'll have a blog post summary and recordings on our website, plus the usual takeaways that you guys know about. I'm Cecilia Cheverry at Operations and Outreach Director at Christina T. Miller Sustainable Jewelry Consulting. And I'm very happy to be here with you all, along with my teammates, Christina Miller, our founder and lead consultant, and Ana Braceitite, our education director. Through our educational and consulting services, we provide strategy, guidance, and education on responsible sourcing and sustainability for the jewelry industry. You can find out more at christinatmiller.com and can always reach out to us with questions or suggestions. We want to say a big thank you truly from the bottom of our hearts to those of you who are able to contribute to making these living room sessions possible through the pay what you want option on our website, as well as to everyone here for showing up for this conversation or listening to it down the road in this July summer month. As usual, quick housekeeping. This conversation is being recorded and will be in the public realm. We encourage your participation through the chat and may read some questions or comments out loud. For the best sound quality for the recording, please make sure your microphone is muted. And remember that this is a kind community space, so please be respectful of everyone's privacy and personal space if you're using the chat. Our next living room, by the way, is September 15th. And also, as usual, please sign up for our newsletter to receive a reminder about that, as well as the takeaways. You'll find the link in the chat. And now I'll hand it over to Christina to start. Thank you.
Hi, we're so honored to be hosting Friends of the Inyo. And as we heard from Cecilia, this is a group looking to protect land and water of the Eastern Sierra and to block new mining there. And they have some information to share with us. It's been a long process and not one that has stopped. And really what we're looking to hear is what the situation is, and then what members of the jewelry industry can do to support their work. So we are especially honored to have with us the executive director of Friends of the Inyo, Wendy Schneider, along with the organization's desert lands organizer, Jaime Lopez Wolters, who will join us to share their expertise on the matter. And we'll also be joined in conversation by jeweler Deb Durant, who has been a regular face on our living room sessions and approached us with lots of care about this topic and introduced us to Friends of the Inyo. Really quick, I'm at a public library, so I thought I'd read a quick poem by Mary Oliver from her book, Devotions. She's a beautiful poet, so I'll try not to cry. This is the page I opened to when I pulled the book off the shelf. Meadowlark sings and I greet him in return is the title. Meadowlark, when you sing, it's as if you lay your yellow breast upon mine and say hello, hello. And we are not of one family in our delight of life. You sing, I listen. Both are necessary. If the world is to continue going around, night heavy, then light laden, though not everyone knows this, or at least not yet, or perhaps has forgotten it in the torn fields, in the terrible debris of progress. Seemed quite apropos to this topic. So at this time, we would love to welcome Wendy and Jaime to kick off an introduction to Friends of the Inyo.
Oh, thank you so much, Christina. And thank you for opening with a poem. I am a big fan of poetry and of Mary Oliver in particular. So that was really great. Thank you so much. So um, like Christina said, I'm the executive director of Friends of the Inyo, a position I've had for about 5.5 years. And it's a it's a great privilege and it's joyful work, but it often feels like you're pushing a rock up a hill. And you know, when you're in the conservation world, defeats are permanent. Victories are temporary. It's just something that you have to be geared up for. And we really appreciate the interest of this group in the work that we're doing. So with respect to this area that we call Conglomerate Mesa, I'll just give a quick rundown of kind of what's been going on. The area has been under threat of gold mining development for a very long time. I'd say at least 30 years. So it way predated, you know, my tenure at Friends of the Inyo. And unfortunately, the mesa is heavily mineralized. You know, I have been to the Ridgecrest field office to look through all of the folders about it. And, you know, to the extent that the gold mining exploration companies have been successful getting permits and doing work, unfortunately, it shows that there's a lot of gold up there. And the gold occurs in a Carlin deposit, which I understand is a dust form. And so the mining process involves a cyanide heap leach procedure. And that is extremely toxic and really cannot be remediated really in a true way, you know, at all. Certainly not in, you know, the periods of hundreds of years. It would take thousands of years probably to bring this area back should they be able to explode the mesa, sift it through cyanide and, you know, and pull all the gold out. So there has been a company that came up in the 80s, like successfully got a program through, did an exploration and reclaimed the roads, although they did a really bad job, as they always do. They didn't use native seed, and you can still see, you know, where those roads were. And then another company came about 10 years ago, maybe less than that, maybe 5 years ago, and they were successful in getting a permit, and they did a helicopter exploration where they were forced by BLM, largely because of our work and putting so much pressure on them that they were not allowed to reopen those old roads. They were not allowed to build new roads. They had to bring everything in by helicopter and do their drilling, you know, like that. And then they went away. They came in, they did their drilling, they got their samples, and they went away. And so now they want to do another one, and they want to do it about 10 times, you know, about on a 10x of their previous project. And they want to be able to build roads and, you know, do a lot more destructive stuff. And that project, the comment period for that expanded exploration will open in late October or early November. And just like we did the first time, we need to generate tens of thousands of comments and also present a lot of scientific evidence to BLM to encourage them to make it as difficult and as expensive as possible for the mining company to do what it wants to do. And I don't know how much you guys know about kind of mining in the United States in general, but we are burdened by the 1872 mining law, which is very old and desperately needs to be updated. But it basically gives mining kind of like the right of way, like you kind of have the right to do this. And all we can do is nip at the edges. And, you know, we do that by like showing BLM, for example, that there are rare and endangered threatened plants up there. And we do. We have 5 species, one of which may be endemic, and we're working on getting that listed on the Endangered Species Act. We also show that there are thriving Joshua trees that are reproducing up there, and there are thousands of them. And at a time when they're not reproducing in Joshua Tree National Park, we show them that there are cultural resources. There was a 2,500-year-old lithic scatter that was severely damaged by that first mining operation that, you know, that built the roads and everything. We show that kind of stuff. And all of this is just to, you know, all we can do is severely decrease the amount of area that they will allow them to work on. And at a point that gets to be too much trouble. You know what I mean? It gets to be too expensive for the very little bit of stuff that they're going to be able to do. So that's basically, that's how we do it. We just pull out everything we can from our quiver to try to knock back, you know, their ability to tear up the land, basically. And one of the big things that we do is partner with the indigenous community and really help to elevate their voice, their concerns about this, which we've done very successfully in this area. it's a super interesting area. It's super interesting historically and culturally, and also with respect to the wildlife that's there and the little microclimate that exists there, because it's in the desert, but it's high up, and you'll see that in the film. But let me just stop talking there and see if there are any questions. And if not, then I'll turn it over to Jaime to introduce himself and talk a little bit more. But
Let's go to Jaime.
okay.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, so I'm Jaime Lopez Wolters, the Desert Lands organizer for Friends of the Inyo, and I've get the privilege to explore this area and bring people to it on tours, and to do research and photographs and kind of find out as much as I can, as much as we can, about the area and sort of what its history is, and to try to really protect it, because what this place is it's basically untouched by human hands, except for the exploration that Wendy mentioned that happened once or twice throughout its history, and maybe some charcoal harvesters that were there when Cerro Gordo, which is a nearby silver mine that was produced a lot of silver in its day, was active. The area doesn't really have a big imprint by human hands, and we would really like to keep it that way. And I think that the majority of the communities here in the Eastern Sierra would like that as well. The photo behind me is Conglomerate Mesa. So this was a snow-covered photo that was taken in the spring, but that is sort of the iconic mesa that the area is named after. But in reality, I do a lot of research on through maps and mapping and GIS stuff, and I've been looking at sort of the claims that the company that is looking to exploit this area has been placing on the land. And like Wendy said, this mining law of 1872 basically allows anybody with an intention to mine to go out into an area that's public land, it's supposed to be the land of everyone, and lay a claim literally by putting a stake in the ground and then going to the recorder's office and saying, I believe there's something there to be had in the ground, and it's my intention to pull it out. And the company has, over the last several years, been laying thousands of these claims. Each claim is about 20 acres. And so we're talking that there's about 20,000 acres of land that the company has claimed in this region. And, what their exploration is going to be on a relatively small scale compared to that. But you can see that the intention is that if, they can prove that there is sufficient mineral there to justify a large mine, they would already have sort of prepped the groundwork for doing a massive construction. And that's something that we're really concerned with. So the film that we are going to show you, which is called Island in the Sky, gives a really good representation of what would happen and what could happen if we don't stop this mining company from digging up this gold in this area.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if you have the answer kind of at your fingertips, but we spend a lot of time looking at mining policy and mining law outside the US, right? Because our jewelry materials come from all over the world. And since we're an international organization, business, but we are centered in the US. So one of the big questions is always, how is it possible that Canadian mining companies and British-owned mining companies can mine on US indigenous land and even register their claim and not even be a US citizen? Do you have the insight on how that works?
I can give you one piece of the puzzle, perhaps, but it's a really good question, and maybe Wendy has more insight to this as well. But I know that K2 Gold, which is the Canadian mining company or Canadian-based mining company, they registered a local subsidiary called Mojave Precious Metals, and they're operating under that name here. So, multinational corporations have the ability to sort of be multi-armed and have the convenience of registering their operations in the places that they feel they need to achieve their goals, I suppose. Wendy, do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's just really easy to do. It's not, the way the law is written, it doesn't restrict, in any way. I think that, yeah, all they have to do is just file, and they all do these, they're all of these mining companies are either Canadian or Australian, or all the ones that we've run into. And they just file the necessary paperwork with the Secretary of State of the state that they want to work in, and it's pretty easy to do. So it's just not much of an impediment.
Thanks for that.
The interesting thing is that this area in particular is surrounded by land that did get protected in one form or another over the years. So just east of Conglomerate Mesa is Death Valley National Park, which is cherished and protected, being a national park. And to the north of it are the Inyo mountains, which a portion of it, pretty close to Conglomerate Mesa, but not the mesa itself, are protected by wilderness. And south of it is Malpai Wilderness. And a little bit south of that is the Coso Range, which also part of which is protected by wilderness. But there's this sort of chunk that was left unprotected, in part because these minerals were there. And it's an important corridor for migration. It's like Wendy was saying, the Joshua tree that you see next to me over here is an example of a species that is going to need these kinds of places. So as the world is getting hotter, Joshua Tree National Park, like near where Deb is currently zooming in from, is actually not going to be an ideal region for Joshua trees to thrive and survive. And you see that already in that they're not really reproducing much anymore. Whereas in the plateau behind me here in this photo and the mesa itself, the higher altitude and the higher elevation means that these Joshua trees actually are thriving and are reproducing. And so it's a key environment to protect, but yet it's kind of was left out of this sort of puzzle piece network of other types of protection that surround it.
And we believe that it was cut out. It has twice been proposed to be protected as part of desert protection legislation, once by Dianne Feinstein, and I'm not sure with the other one, but twice it was cut out. And of course, we don't really know why. Like, those are things that happen, once things get to committees and in Congress and stuff. But we're pretty sure that it was lobbying, on behalf of the extraction industry, that cut them out, because it conglomerates. It really is a donut of like, that's been cut out of these other areas that were protected. And I just want to point out that we do want to move forward with a permanent protection of some kind of conglomerate mesas, that we can stop fighting, these like kind of succinctive mining threats. But the truth is that with respect to valid existing rights, meaning mining claims that have already been filed and are being taken care of properly, you can't extinguish them, even if you were to get it designated as wilderness or as a national monument, which is kind of our number one hope right now. But what happens is that, like, in the process of putting through a proposal to do some kind of work, if the mining company is having to work in an environment where the land they want to mine on is protected as a national monument or as a designated wilderness, it just becomes very, very hard for them to prove that the impacts that they make are consistent with the way that land is supposed to be managed. So as a practical matter, it gets very difficult to undertake mining operations if you're in designated wilderness or a national monument, even though those things are technically not disallowed, by the designation document. So that's where we're going with that. But as I mentioned before, we are working, partnering with the indigenous community, which has been a kind of a slower process than we were thinking that it might. And this is happening across the American West. There's more and more recognition of the value of the traditional ecological knowledge and just the passion for the land that the indigenous community has, and wanting to bring that forward, bring that up, elevate that with the land management agencies. But it's been a slow road. There's a lot of suspicion and distrust of the white conservation community. Valley by the indigenous community. And that's something that is not just going to be overcome in one meeting, like in our own situation, one of the tribes for whom Conglomerate Mesa is ancestral homelands, like that they have a lot of ancestral homelands in that area, and their access to and ability to use the land in their traditional way in Death Valley was severely limited when Death Valley became a national monument and then a park. So they're very suspicious about like what's going to happen, yeah, it sounds great. We want to protect the land and keep mining off of it. But, so anyway, it's been a really interesting, really fulfilling work to start working with the tribes and to start moving, in that direction of trust. That's been one of the favorite parts of my job over the last couple of years, but we're getting there.
Sounds like a great time to share the film, and then we'll still have some time to talk afterwards. What do you all think?
That sounds great. Yeah, I did want to point out that Chris Hohag has also joined us.
Great.
He's a local tribal member and actually is featured in the film as well. So thanks for joining us.
Wonderful.
Thank you for being here.
So cute.
And he has adorable babies.
Yeah.
They are what the work is about. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I will share the film now.
Tom Budline, age 84. I pay my taxes in Los Angeles, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm home here. California I discovered when I came out here in 1959, but this place I think was probably about 25 years ago when I was tracing out old trails. And the trail of interest here was the one that went between Keeler and the Death Valley Mines. Why this place is so attractive to me? Well, it's like a lot of other places that haven't been civilized. This place gets along on its own. It doesn't need us. You go to the big city, it needs us, and there's all that commotion down there. And this is so quiet, and everything, it takes care of itself. And that's a form of magic.
Conglomerate Mesa is just this really special, unique Joshua Tree Island out there between the Sierras, which is, the highest mountains in the area. Then you get to the Inyos right there, and then all the way to the lowest point in the contiguous United States, Death Valley. Conglomerate Mesa is right there in the middle, and there's a lot of lowlands around it, and there's another few peaks right above it, and it's just this beautiful space of where wildlife and plants converge at this unique elevation.
Our name for this valley is Payahunadu, or Payahoop. They both kind of mean the same thing. They both have to do with the water that continually flows. And this place was all about the water. There was a huge river flowed into this lake, Patsiata that we call it, that had all kinds of rivers and creeks flowing into it. It was a source of life. So there was everything you needed. It was amazing and used by a lot of people. So when you looked in this valley, everything had to do with water.
So what I'm looking at is some of the land on Conglomerate Mesa and the surrounding territory, which is some of the nicest undisturbed land in California that you can see. This should have been a wilderness area, and it was considered for wilderness, and it was dropped from wilderness about 1995, and that's when the miners looked at it and said, oh, there might be some gold there. Between then and now, I've logged 10 mines that have looked and left. So we're working on the 11th one right now, which is this K2 Gold outfit.
You look at these companies, the one we're dealing right now and the last one, both come out of Canada. It's really scary when you get those people that have no interest in this place other than to take.
The law is, if there is an issue that's brought up that needs to be addressed, providing you mitigate that risk, they can't stop you from actually going ahead with it. You have the right to mine. You have the right to explore and the right to mine.
I've been an environmentalist in Inyo County for almost 50 years, almost half a century. And if this mining pit goes in at Conglomerate Mesa, this would be the most destructive environmental act in the history of Inyo County since the city of Los Angeles came to the Owens Valley in the early 1900s.
Right now, they've done exploratory drilling, right? Where they've essentially dug to find out what they think is in there in terms of the richness of the soil and the minerals. They are currently in the process of awaiting approval or denial to expand their exploration, which is going to be extremely damaging. They're requesting 5 to 7 miles of a new road, as well as over 100 additional holes than they've already dug. And that's just to continue to test, and for their purpose, testing means find more reason to dig an open pit gold mine.
I can't see that this next round of drilling, which is 10,000 meters, it's a significant size program for us, but it's not going to cause undue degradation.
They say they're just doing exploratory, but what are they exploring for? You know, they keep, oh, that's down the road. We don't need to talk about that. Yeah, we do. That's the trouble. You don't think about the future. You just think about getting $1 in your pocket right now. That's not what it's about. Even if you're not destroying it now, you're paving the way for somebody to come in and destroy it. The way that they mine gold and silver and all these other heavy metals today is not like they did it, you know, in the romantic age of mining, which a lot of people in this valley were part of. My family was a part of that because you had to have a job, and that was where the jobs were. But they don't just go and dig a little hole in the ground anymore. They just go and tear up the whole place. There would be nothing left of that mesa but a big hole that you could see for miles. My family's lived in this valley, taken care of this valley and the mountains, and they take care of us for millennia. As far back as you can trace my family, we've been here. This area is barely hanging on as it is from what, you know, how people have treated it in the last 150 years.
We do expect K2 and Mojave Precious Metals to gather up support and raise investor money to then turn around and sell this to a different company that will do the actual open pit gold mine. They want to find out what's in that soil to make sure that they can make it attractive to investors, because gold is at a all-time high right now, and some people think money is more important than a mountain out in the California desert, but we live out here, so.
There is nothing sustainable about mining. It is purely extraction. You dig the hole and you leave. Nowadays, they're able to, just on the scale of it, giant equipment, dig such massive holes. And they can get just fractionalized gold. Gold you can't even see in the rock. The first thing they would do is they would work on access, improve roads that are there, build new roads if they needed them. Then they would scrape everywhere that they're going to develop, where the pit's going to be, where the spoils piles are going to be, where the leach ponds are going to be, where the leach piles are going to be, where their buildings are going to be. Then they have to work on power. Are they going to have just generators and work on it that way, or are they going to bring in power? Then they would begin removing the overlay, the rock that doesn't have the ore in it. They finally get down to where they have the ore body. When they bring that rock out, they crush it, and then put it in these piles that sit on these, it's plastic material, through sprinklers, drip a cyanide solution, kind of dissolve and combine with that cyanide and make a new compound. It'll leach down through, hit that liner, and then drain off into a pond or somewhere where they will collect what's called the leachate, which is the gold bonded with the cyanide material.
Can you imagine those giant yellow trucks that can haul 20 tons of rock at the same time, driving through here, digging holes to get the gold out? A giant hole. It would be absolutely destructive.
We know that facilities of this type use hundreds of millions of gallons of water a year, and it's a safe estimate that a facility on Conglomerate Mesa would use about 200 million gallons of fresh water a year.
So where are they going to get water? The closest water is probably Owens Lake. Now, if they were to drill a well there, you've got state lands, DWP, and BLM. If BLM allowed them to drill a well, they'd be competing with Los Angeles and the Dust Mitigation Project for water. And both the Dust Mitigation Project and the city of Los Angeles, I'm sure, would take higher priority than a private mine.
We have regulations that say you're supposed to put the land back together again, but you can't put this back together again. Any damage you do from a mine like that would be erased only in the terms of geologic time, and that to me is a tragedy. That was done in the Briggs mine about 40 miles east of here in the last 20 years, and the earth and the civilization is no better for the gold that came out of the Briggs mine. But there it is, a giant scar in Panamint Valley. And we don't want that to happen here. It would be a tragedy.
The fact that it's just not remediable. You know, like when you take the soil and blow it up and sift it through a cyanide solution, just because you pile it back up doesn't mean it's like it was before. Desert soil is alive, and when the wind blows over it, it stays still. And once you kill it, it just becomes a source of dust, and it's no longer living, can't support plant life, can't support animal life like it did before.
I feel like the gold company is trying to convince us that there's nothing out there. There's nothing to be lost. It's just some rock and some trees and some desert. And I'm like, you're crazy. Like, this place is so vibrant. Native people, you know, places that look like they're just desert, for instance, or just nature, just open space. Our connection to that is often explained in a term called traditional ecological knowledge, which is just a whole nother layer of understanding that, unfortunately, if you're haven't been in a particular place for very long, you don't value what is right underneath your nose. And I'm not saying this is only a native thing, because there's plenty of non-native people that build relationship with a place over time. But I think it's in everyone's best interest to act indigenous to a place and learn that traditional ecological knowledge, to really learn about the interconnectedness, the sacredness and values of places beyond the US dollar. The plants have value, the animals have value, even those rocks have value. And there's a lot of things that can't be explained on a spreadsheet.
The people who, if you like, are most on the offensive and against the mining are the people who tend to retire from the bigger cities. And it's a few of the people who are living there for a lifestyle. But I tell you, in Lone Pine, which is extremely open-minded, local community of 1,800 people, we have a lot of support, a lot more support than we've been given credit for. we're winning over quite a lot of the businesses and the local people in terms of supporting what we're trying to do. We've got an open book, Matt. We're transparent. We have an office in the small town of Lone Pine. We have numerous open days. And so far, we haven't, as far as I can see, we haven't missed a step so far.
Protecting all of the land is important to me, and also protecting this mesa and protecting all of the animals and plants that don't have a voice. The four-leggeds and the plants, they deserve protection just as much as we all do. And it's indigenous land. Like, this is native land and we need to protect it.
All this moving dirt requires these giant dirt haulers. They burn a lot of diesel, getting the overburden out and getting the gold ore out of the ground. So this is really an alchemy of converting diesel into gold is what it amounts to.
K2 Gold is going to establish an open pit mine on the mesa directly above our well. That means our watershed. They are going to pollute and contaminate our watershed. And just to say nothing about the hole in the earth that they're going to create. And none of these companies ever fix what they start, okay? They all say they will, and they never do. And it's a homeland for the Paiute and Shoshone people. It's terrible. It really is.
So, if they propose to blast the crest of the Inyos to smithereens, yeah, I might have a thought or two about that. They don't identify with the land. It's not in their backyard. It's out of sight, out of mind. We look at it every day, and for a lot of people, it's home, or and a spiritual home. It provides a sense of well-being to people, some people.
It's just sad. It's sad that people have that attitude, that it's okay to do this in somebody else's land. That's just scary when people, because they're not thinking of anybody but themselves, or take into consideration how somebody else needs this land to survive.
They talk about reclamation, but that's a joke. The mining companies change names and go through bankruptcy so fast, it becomes a fog as to who's responsible. The scar just sits there.
I believe by using our intellect, our innovation, our ingenuity, we can truly make a beautiful place to live together while protecting this planet. It can happen, and maybe this region of California, Payahunari, will have to be the model for that, you know? Since there's been so much destruction here in a short period of time, maybe we can reverse it and have a lot of restoration in a short period of time and reimagine Payahunari.
So what we need you to do right now is to raise your voice to protect Conglomerate Mesa from this destructive project. Please go to the Bureau of Land Management e-planning website and raise your voice for Conglomerate Mesa and against the destructive mining proposal.
so much. Excellent.
Yeah, as we all settle after seeing that, feel free to put your initial reactions. There were a lot of comments happening during the film. I think it's clear, Chris, that you're juggling many things, if I may address you directly. We've heard from Wendy, we spoke a little bit with Jaime already. Is there something in particular, what we'd like to, with this final part of the conversation, is sort of ramp up to action. But I think having the opportunity to hear from you and a bit of your personal experience in this effort that's been dragging out for a long time. And in the film, you have a hopeful vision for how we might be able to see rapid protection. Go ahead and offer some of your words. We'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Hey, you guys, can you hear me all right? With this, I'm looking at you. I'm really glad I watched this film with my kids today. I realize this is the first time I've seen this. I've seen the trailer, but it's incredibly well done. Kudos to all the filmmakers and everyone behind the scenes and all you guys who've worked on it. I think it really tells the story and explains the disconnect, as someone's comment said. The most revealing thing to me was watching my daughter's responses to this film. This is so obvious to her. She's like, why are they doing that? Why do they want to do that to our land? Do my ancestors live there? Why do they want to dig them up? Very logical questions when you have a tie to a place. She's been out there a couple times in her few years of life. And as you saw, my daughter was in that film maybe when she was about 3. She just turned 5. And these 2 boys haven't been out there, but they will be. And I'm just struck at her level of comprehension of what's going on with that, the way that this film laid out the situation at hand. She has genuine concern, and also, why would someone do this? So we're in that question of what is more important, these plants, these animals, this place, or the shareholders' bottom line. And that doesn't make much sense to her at all. And the last thing she asked is like, why don't we make it? And when she said why don't we make the law so that they can't do it? Because I told her the law just allows them to. That's why they're doing it. And she was, why can't we make it so the law doesn't do that? And so letting her know that's the work we're all engaging in right now, is trying to move that big needle forward, because we're dealing with a 1862, I understand, law, which I always try to remind people what else was okay in 1862 in this country. It was a heck of a lot of stuff we're not okay with now. And so I appreciate the comparisons of perspectives, and that film just really lays out to me the moral compass of the story here. I'm not from down there in Lone Pine, but my family is. My partner is from Lone Pine. These kids are descendants from that part of the valley. I'm more from the northern part. I was raised in Bishop, and my relatives mostly came from this part, ended up in Mono Lake. But being from this region, we stand with each other, and when the community members down there, the relatives, the tribal historic preservation officers, the tribal leaders are asking for our support, that this is very important, because it's something that once it goes forward, we can't ever undo it. We're putting our best foot forward to speak truth to power, and let people know that this is not okay with us, that this short-term boom will definitely have a bust, and we'll be left with the pieces to pick up. And just that we don't see all this stuff as nothingness. It was a place that I'd never gone to actually before I engaged here with this campaign. But once I went out to Conglomerate Mesa with some other people from Lone Pine, it was just such a a reverent experience. We walked out there, and as you could see from like the sunrise moments in the film, that film really captures some beautiful moments of time. Hold on, this guy wants to play guitar. And we experienced that for ourselves, and we were like, it just made so much sense to us. And once you climb and you get to the top of that mesa, it felt extremely spiritual. And certain people would tell us that this is a type of place where you would go for ceremony or go for fasting, or what people might call a vision or a vision quest. This is like one of those isolated, remote areas where you're basically gonna feel the power of the creator all around you. And you're able to see over Death Valley, you're able to see the Sierras, and it just helps you see how small you are. I encourage all of you who haven't been to try to come and see this place. It's a little bit of an effort to get out there. But as I said, for me and other Native community members who've gone out there, when we made it out there, we were like, wow, we need to reestablish our relationship here and protect it at all costs, because if we don't do our part, then we're going to really miss a big opportunity, and we won't feel good about this mine being put up. So that's basically our efforts right now, is to continue to build the connection with those who haven't been connected out there, because it's a little off the beaten path. We're living in an era of in the last number of generations, we mostly live in the small communities and on these reservations, which are kind of removed from that area over the mountains.
It's a picture for action.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Do you want to share something about that place? This girl had a great time when we went out there. I remember just very carefree and looking at all those birds and the Joshua trees. As I'm learning more about Joshua trees too, I'm like, this is a really special Joshua tree place. And for anyone who knows about the age of Joshua trees, what they look like at certain ages, I'm convinced there's some really ancient Joshua trees out there, especially on your drive out there. Layers and layers of specialness, let alone all the cultural artifacts that are scattered around that place. I'm happy to answer any questions. This, as Tom Budlong said in that film, this is we're going on the 11th company, if not the 12th. We're almost to a dozen, and this is kind of an exhausting thing we don't want to have to do for the rest of our lives, is scare away multinational corporations every time they show up and do some exploration. So we're really hoping to build our alliance far and wide. People that aren't from here, people that are invested in the industry of mining for different reasons, which it sounds like this group might be, and to share with people that some places are just too special for this type of conduct. And we appreciate people listening to our perspective, and Friends of the Inyo for their work lifting this up over the years. And hopefully, while we move forward, we can get some serious laws changed, if not getting this area specifically protected.
Thanks so much.
I'm still learning about the jewelry community. I don't know a ton about it. I hope I can hear from you all today about maybe your position and your role as it relates to mining. I know obviously jewelry is made out of gold and different precious metals, so I'm really curious. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your industry puts this type of metal in demand, but and maybe helps drive up the prices as well. So I'm learning a lot of those contexts, and I would hope to hear more from you all today if you have insight, and appreciate that you're here willing to learn from our perspective about what is ethical on the ground. Gold has been dug up for quite a while and has presented an issue in the Eastern Sierra since the 1850s, 1840s. So we're kind of experiencing this next wave right now, and I appreciate you all joining us so we can kind of figure out how to push it away. I'm kind of gonna step back for a moment, and if anyone wants to ask any other questions, I'm happy to chime in later as well.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we only have an hour reserved for this conversation, and I'm kicking myself that we didn't make this one of our 90-minute ones, because we often do that. And maybe, you know, it's a conversation that we do again. You know, we are in charge of choosing the topics that we pick for the living room session. So we might not have time to tell the whole story about why there's, you know, this really concerned group of jewelers readily always willing to respond to issues with mining. We'll get to that, but I'm wondering first, Deb Durant came to us to my consultancy, Christina T. Miller Consulting, saying, hey, is there something that we could do together here? So Deb, I'd really love to give you a quick opportunity to stitch together sort of Chris's question, like why jewelers and what's going on here? And then we can lead into all of your questions about what do we do next and how can we share this story? So Deb, are you available?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh no.
No, we hear you.
I'm unmuted.
Yes, you're good.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear
Christina, thank you so much for the question, and beautiful thanks to everyone involved here and for everyone who showed up. I met Jaime at Pioneers this year, an incredible conference involving all things climate change related. And he told me about the project and the destruction that was about to happen. And I said, what beautiful work you're doing. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a goldsmith. And we had a conversation about this unique opportunity to get the perspective from the people who work responsibly with gold, how they might, while still working with gold, want to voice their support of protection of these areas, that we would not want to purchase or use this gold. I think this is a unique perspective and an opportunity, amazingly, as Wendy and Jaime really clearly pointed out in the film, to do something before it happens. And I just want to shout out to Jade Begay, a person at Pioneers who was one of the main speakers, who talked about the importance of working locally, how to localize. You know, you do such beautiful work globally, Christina, Anna, Cecilia, for our industry, but there's so much we can be doing here locally to support the right things and speak up against, you know, what's legal and what's ethical versus what's ethical. They aren't the same. What's legal is not necessarily what's ethical. So thank you for all you guys are doing.
Thank you, Deb. So either Wendy or Jaime, whoever, you know, whichever of you would prefer to speak next, if you could kind of lay out again the schedule a bit, where we are seeing that there's going to be an October-November opportunity to provide comments, but people are also wondering about sharing the film. So if there are things that you're doing from your organization directly, we could hear that. In terms of how we continue to collaborate with each other, we are going to have to address that later. But if you can tell us what's on the horizon for Friends of the Inyo, that would be excellent.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. So the next thing that's going to happen is with respect to the proposed expanded exploration. Like I said, they want to do about a 10x kind of bigger project than they did before, because unfortunately they found a lot of gold. We believe that the comment period is going to open in late October or early November. Now, they told us in 2022 that it was going to open in January of 2023. So luckily, because of all of the noise that our coalition has made, you know, over the years, like this is a kind of a political hot potato, and the agency, I think, believes that it's likely that litigation will result, you know, from approving this project. So it's really been a run up the flagpole on the state level and on the national level. So
But, you know, because of the 1872 mining law, it's really, really difficult to like just get it completely quashed. What we can hope for is to diminish the possibilities, you know, the geographic areas and the ways that they have to do things to make it really expensive, make it really a lot of trouble for them to be able to go forward. But it is unlikely that we will get, you know, achieve the result of getting any exploration, you know, to remove the permission for them to do anything at all. They will likely get permission to do something, but we are hoping to pare that back so that it won't be worth it to them. But my suggestion would be that we share this recording and share through the network your film in late October, earlier November, when the comment period opens, because it would be extremely helpful to our fight against this for, you know, your organization, your contacts to join in with hopefully tens of thousands of others in submitting comments to BLM saying, we don't want this. I mean, this is public land. This is as much belongs to people in New York City as it does to the people of Inyo County. And BLM will take your thoughtful comments, your expression that you don't want to see it torn up for the sake of making money for a Canadian mining company. They will take that just as seriously if you're in New York City as if you're in Inyo County. If you bother to submit comments, you know, those really help us to push back. And we will be pushing back along with our partners and both the national and local level on like a science level. You know, hey, you know, we've got all of these plants that are special. We've got animals that are special. You know, we have cultural resources that are special. You know, we will help the indigenous community to the extent that they need it, you know, or want it, you know, from us to push their thoughts forward. So anyway, it can be definitely part of the solution if this group can generate more comments for us. So that's how you can help us the most. And I just wanted to point out, you saw at the end of the film that K2 Gold had said, we're not going to do it. So we were successful in requiring an EIS, which, to get wonky for a second, is an environmental impact statement as opposed to an EA, which is an environmental assessment, which is more expensive for them to do. So they were really angry about that. They did a press release and they said, they accused us of backroom dealing and of doing illegal things to get BLM to require an EIS, which we didn't. And they're like, well, we're not going to do this. We're like, yay. But then they came back some months later and said, okay, even though it costs, you know, 10 times as much as doing an EA, we're going to do it anyway. And that's because the price of gold is high, has been for a long time. And there's a lot of gold up there, you know, unfortunately. So they say that they're going to go ahead and do an EIS. And, you know, that's where they're at now.
Thanks for that update. There's, you know, we're seeing so in Canada, in British Columbia territory, that's a territory that is trying to establish itself as like the most responsible mining in the country. Such a weird, like in the world, we have the most responsible. However, what they're doing really well is free, prior, and informed consent. So there's a few, I just want to drop a few little terms for people that for whom this kind of activism might be new. So free, prior, and informed consent, the acronym is FPIC, is increasingly used globally at the exploration stage to say, like, if you don't have explicit consent of, and there are rules now defining the consent part. So it's not like we talked to a few people and they all said it was fine. It's like, really, you have to validate what consent is. So that's a really important term for those in the jewelry community to familiarize yourselves with when you're looking at new mining initiatives. And then regarding the environmental assessment and the environmental impact statement. So I reference BC because they're starting to advocate for, and, you know, sorry that it like always takes too damn long, but that indigenous communities lead with support, lead the call for those environmental assessments based on their criteria. And so we're seeing more of, Wendy, at the outset, you know, sort of you alluded to sort of the skepticism of white land conservationists in the eyes of indigenous people, because on one hand, yes, it's helpful, great. And on the other hand, it can have impacts due to the way the law is practiced that weren't intended, limiting access. So involving indigenous voices early on around those two key concepts of free, prior, informed consent, and then those environmental assessments is really important. There's one other thing I wanted to say too in all of this is, we look a lot at large scale gold mining with our consultancy. We look at artisanal mining around the world. We look at junior mining companies, which is the case here, with their intent to develop and then sell. And you can go to the mining companies' websites, these gold mining companies' websites, and all on their pathways to sustainability. And their pathways to sustainability look like shifting from coal energy, for example, to solar power, or shifting their fleet from diesel to electric. There are all kinds of circumstances that make even some of those options feasible or not, regardless of their impact on carbon. That doesn't say anything about the land and the relationship with the people and the relationship with the animals and the relationship to the plants. So there's just sort of this, absolutely misunderstanding. And for jewelers, for Chris, I wanted to say that, the jewelers that join these conversations are the ones whose heart and soul is in their jewelry. It's not a big giant brand or a heartless company with a bunch of shareholders, right? These are people that start and own their businesses and come to jewelry because it was this beautiful way to express themselves and connect people. So I hope that helps to explain why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can relate to that because her mom is a jeweler. She's a Native American artist, makes beautiful necklaces and
Yeah.
totally get the connection, and that it happens at different scales. So I just appreciate
Yes.
that. You're all
And
here.
if need be, we also stop doing things or not pursue certain avenues because it's wrong. So.
Yeah. So thank you all so much, Wendy and Jaime, for all your behind the scenes prep. Being able to screen this film was incredible. And we really look forward to collaborating more on getting this story out with you all. Any last words before we close down?
Just to say thank you back to you. Likewise, we really appreciate this opportunity and appreciate your genuine, authentic interest in this.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I wanted to mention, so the last few notes in the chat are a link to subscribe to just Friends of the Inyos, informational things in general. And also I shared our latest 2 newsletters that are specifically about Conglomerate Mesa, and a form that you could fill out if you wanted to receive those newsletters about Conglomerate Mesa specifically in the future. So that would be a way for us to be able to share with you the moment that the comment period does open, and we would hope that you could contribute and help protect this place. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jaime. And I'll make sure that I include those in the takeaways in the newsletter that we send out to everyone here, so that we can all add your voice. Really appreciate everyone being here today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.